So ever since I switched to flat pedals for my mountain bike about 8 years ago, I've tried a lot of different shoes. Everything from 510, Etnies, all the way to Ride Concepts. And while all the shoes have been pretty good, they're all from really big companies. And while I don't have any issues with big companies, I really like to see small companies enter the scene to see if they can bring anything new. Which brings us to the shoes that we're talking about today, which is a flat pedal shoe from a company called Anamoly, which is a small startup based out of Texas. So in this video, we're gonna check out the features of the Anamoly shoes, and more importantly, test them out to see if this small company has what it takes to go head to head with the big boys. So now, let's get to it. So before trying out these shoes, I'd never heard of Anamoly before. So they're a small mountain bike shoe company that was started by Chris Armstrong, who's a design engineer and product developer, and is a footwear designer by trade, who's worked as a lead designer and R&D lead for such companies as EVS, O'Neill, and Gridiron Labs, to name a few. So Chris had a crash at Whistler that he felt was due to the inferior rubber quality of the flat pedal shoes that he was wearing at the time. So he wanted to create his own shoe. And after trying to get the idea off the ground through a company he was working at, he decided to start his own. So after many years, this is what he came up with: the Anamoly flat pedal mountain bike shoe. The shoe is made of a stitchless and seamless upper that's designed to improve both water and mud resistance. And in order to keep the shoes from overheating, there's laser ventilation perforations on the side to let air in. The shoes also use a rubber sole that has its own tread design and rubber compound called Hero Rubber. Anamoly claims to use a tread pattern and design so that the shoes are both sticky when riding and able to have a large contact path to make hiking when you're pushing your bike easier and more grippy as well. The Anamoly shoe uses a high ankle support design, where the inside is a little taller than the outside to keep it protected from rubbing on your cranks and minimizing ankle rolls and sprains. The bottom half of the laces are hidden to protect from tears from hitting trail obstacles, and there's also an elastic lace keeper, so your laces don't get caught in your chain and other parts of your drivetrain. And one very welcome feature is the wide toe box, which measures US 1.5E and gives the rider a lot of room, and also includes a thermo-welded 3D reinforced toe cap to protect your toes from rock strikes. It also includes a raised midsole arch and nice insoles. And lastly is the striking design. The color that I have is called Aloha, and it looks very, very good in person. And I've received numerous compliments on the trails on how people like the design. But if wild designs and colors aren't your thing, there's more colorways available that are a lot more subdued. So right out of the box, I found these shoes very comfortable. One thing to keep in mind though, is that these are pretty stiff initially, especially since the upper is water resistant. But after a couple of hours of riding, the shoe broke in, and I never noticed the stiffness after that. The shoe also feels premium and well made. When riding on the trails, the shoe does a really good job of muting out the vibrations of the trail really well. I've never owned a pair of mountain bike shoes with high ankle support, so I was expecting the high ankle design to be intrusive. I did notice it for the first 15 minutes or so, but after that I really never noticed it again. So one thing to note is that since these shoes do have a wider toe box, they do fit on the bigger side. So I wear size 12s, and the shoes that I'm testing are size 12s. And honestly, they work just fine. But if you're in between sizes, I do recommend sizing down. And while all the details that I just mentioned are great and all, what most people really care about is the grip. For most riders, it's the make or break of a flat pedal shoe. So when I rate the grip level of any shoe that I test out, I always compare it to 510 Stealth Sole, because the Stealth Sole is considered the industry standard for mountain biking flat pedal grip performance. So after riding these in the past month or so, I really couldn't feel any difference between the Anamoly grip and the grip on the regular Freeriders that I have. So just to be sure that my body wasn't deceiving me, I decided to conduct a test where I wore the Anomolys on one foot and the Freeriders on the other. So it was during this test that I really felt the main differences between the Anomolys and a regular pair of Freeriders. And the biggest difference is the stiffness of the sole. So compared to the Freeriders, the Anamoly sole is much stiffer, and it does a much better job on transferring power when you're stomping on the pedals. But when it came to grip though, the shoes felt extremely close. Both shoes have a very similar grip level, where both shoes feel very planted on the downhill, but I'm still able to adjust my foot on the pedals if need be. So if you're thinking I should test these shoes more against the Freerider Pros instead of the Freeriders, I do have a pair of Freerider Pros that probably would have been a better shoe to compare. But since the sole's so torn up, I didn't feel there was a fair comparison. But just by walking around in both shoes, the Freerider Pros are much stiffer than the regular Freeriders, and the Anomolys have a very similar stiffness level to the Pros. And just by touching and poking at the soles, it feels like the Freerider Pros use a softer rubber compound than the Anomolys. So to test out water resistance, I was able to take out the shoes on some rides where parts of the trail is wet, but I never rode in actual rain. This is due mostly because trails in San Diego where I live, they don't handle water well. and they get destroyed pretty easily. And I thought it'd be messed up for me to possibly destroy a trail just to conduct this test. But on the days that there was some water on the trails, my feet never got wet. But in order to test out the water resistance in a kind of an extreme measure, I decided to conduct a test. To do this, I threw water directly on the shoe to see if my foot would get wet. After conducting this test, the very top of my sock had a very faint amount of dampness, but the rest of my foot was completely dry. So the next thing I wanted to test was the claim that they're designed to have good grip on hike-a-bike sections. So for this test, I took the shoes to a couple different steep sections that I decided to push my bike up. The first was hiking up a steep rock that had an incline of 25 degrees. For this test, I climbed up this rock pushing a 58-pound e-bike, which might not have been the smartest move looking back on it. And as you can tell, the shoes were able to maintain grip. The biggest issue was trying to push the 58-pound e-bike up the rock with a 25-degree incline. But as you can tell, the shoes worked great on this test and they maintain grip. Next, I did the same test with the same bike on a dirt incline that is pretty steep and it has an incline of 22 degrees. It might not look like it, but this was very slippery dirt. But the shoes did a great job of maintaining grip while once again pushing a 60-pound e-bike up a dirt slope. So overall, I'm extremely happy with these shoes. They're comfortable. In my opinion, they're good looking. They have good breathability, have great water resistance, great grip, have a stiff sole, and just feel like a well-made pair of shoes. The one thing I wish I had for you guys was the long-term durability of these shoes. But since I've only been using this for a month or so, I really can't. But my plan is to run these shoes as my full-time shoes, and I'll do a long-term update once I wear these out. So if you're looking for a pair of flat pedal shoes that are well-made, have a striking design, and you just want to support a small business instead of one of the big brands, I think you should give the Anamoly a try. But if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great one.